Hello and welcome to Do the Right Thing, a weekly writing prompt podcast. I'm Alexandra.
And I'm Jarvis.
Jarvis and I were aspiring writers with one simple and very common problem. We never actually took the time to sit down and write.
Exactly. So to change this, we are issuing a challenge. Each week you sit down and write a complete short story using 3 or 4 randomly generated words.
Then we come on the podcast, we read a story, we talk about what we learned in reading it, and then we talk about the rest of the story sent in by you wonderful listeners.
Exactly. We're simply here to help you do the right thing.
A Doof Media production. Let's just jump right into it. I'm back in Texas. By the way, if you hear purring or other like cat noises, I've got a cat in my lap. Her name is Una Tuna Luna. She's only a year old, and I think she might be pregnant, which is a little really concerning.
Very. But only a year old?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. She's definitely way too small, and that's concerning. But not my cat, not my fault. So no one cancel me. But yeah, she's getting very fat very quickly, and it does not seem like
natural fat.
Yeah. So we're gonna take her to Penny Paws, which is a cheap vet around here.
Yeah, and see if they can't at least let you know what you might need to expect. Yeah.
Maybe she'll need like a C-section or something. Prevent teen pregnancy in your cats by spaying and neutering them, please. And don't keep cats that are not spayed and neutered together like I think my brother did. So, yeah. Anyway, what are the words this week, Jarvis?
Oh, yeah. So the words for this week are picture, woman, grimace, and trade.
Yeah, I really like some of the stories that we got in this week. Let's just jump right into it. Who are we reading?
Yeah. So the first story we will be reading, or the only story we will be reading on this podcast, is by Ace of Sword with Bow Out.
Yeah, I wonder if it's supposed to be bow out or bow out, because it does involve a bow, but...
And like I was thinking, like when I first read it, my mind said blowout. I was like, oh, that could work, but yeah.
Interesting. Okay. I just had the cat bite me, so I'm just gonna not touch her for a second. Maybe she'll calm down.
Cat bite fever.
Cat bite fever. All right. The trail wove between the trees as if some sort of invisible snake had passed through. Not very visible, but the pair of men had experiences at what they did. It wasn't the first time they followed faded paths to hidden places. What do you think? Seems too faint for a village, asked the one in the rear. A shrine, maybe? The other answered, smiling. I hope there'd be priestesses. I'm tired of calloused peasant girls. I'd love to get my hands on a woman with soft skin. The first one smiled at the picture. A temple could be an easy target. Easy enough they could sample things before coming back to the rest of the band. That would be nice. His partner's smile turned into a grimace, and he let out a groan of pain. A wooden shaft had appeared at the bottom of his stomach, right below where the leather armor stopped. He fell backward on the dirt, moaning in agony as blood soaked his legs. The first man didn't even have the time to recover from his shock before a second arrow went through his throat. He fell against a tree, choking on blood and wood. A man strolled out from between the trees, holding a simple hunting bow in one hand and a knife in the other. The man on the ground bared his teeth against the pain, trying to grab his own knife with hands weakened by blood lost. The hunter just kicked his arm. You idiot, groaned the dying man. We're just the scouts. When we don't come back... They were coming anyway, said the hunter. This way, they don't know what to expect. With a quick motion, he shortened the man's end. He turned his gaze to the other one. The marauder tried to stand up, get his weapon, but his head was spinning, and his vision was going dark. All of a sudden, the hunter was right in front of him, hand on the arrow, ripping it out. He bled out so fast, the hunter didn't need to make it quicker.
Well, nice. Yeah, I really do like how this story's focus on brevity, which is the theme for this month, really did allow me to focus a lot more deeply on the prose that are present. And I really do love a lot of these turns of phrases, especially the very first paragraph does a great job at setting this scene in no more than 3 short sentences.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I really did like how much time was taken on the prose level, and it really does make this story successful. Also, I do enjoy the scene overall. We're getting a nice picture into this hunter, but we also get a sense on how fleeting the lives of all other people within this really are. I mean, what would you say that like 1, 2 people died within this? Yeah,
Yeah,
which
2 men. Yeah.
yeah, two men, and they both happened so quick. But we got nice moments from both of them to see their like last ends and to see their own intentions and
Yeah, they weren't
how
exactly great people. It seems like.
exactly, yeah, and we also get to see the consequences of their death, or we get mention of the consequences of their death. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, overall, this is a really good entry.
Yeah, I think definitely some good practice in using brevity to just make the action happen a bit like stronger and faster. Um, Although, yeah, it's nicely done where um, just doing a lot of like short sentences. I think I remember Miroslav, one of our professors, talking
Mm-hmm.
about this. Um, Having a bunch of like short sentences in a row actually makes things like slower because you pause at every like period, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there's some good writing here where there's just these sort of like longer sentences, but they're divided just with these commas that just sort of state very clearly what's going on without
Mm-hmm.
having to, use a bunch of adjectives and adverbs and stuff to describe what's going on. Yeah, I like the. So one example of something that I think is pretty easy to correct, like the wooden shaft of the arrow appearing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was really good of just like we don't have to get told that an arrow hit or whatever. They saw an arrow and it hit and it hurt or whatever. We just like, oh, now there's an arrow there. It's good. Yeah. I think to make it even more immediate, we just have to delete the had appeared, right? So a
Mm.
wooden shaft had appeared at the bottom of the stomach. Instead, just saying a wooden shaft was buried at the bottom of his stomach, or something like that. So just to like make it more immediate rather than
Mm-hmm.
sort of narrating what happened in the past, just say what it is now,
Yeah, yeah, and I think that the addition of those 2 words was probably put there so that the audience wouldn't think that the arrow had been there the whole time.
Yes. Yeah.
But I think within this piece there has been ample description
Hmm.
of everything else, along with a lot of movements and action. That by making that moment of the arrow being as immediate as possible wouldn't confuse the audience,
Hmm.
because we're already used to, within this story and this series, moving at a much quicker pace and things just appearing within
Hmm.
the
Yeah, it's
text.
just
Yeah.
one of those times of like, running directly at the image, right? Rather than, um, providing a lot of context with the like tenses,
Mm-hmm.
just to remove some of that because we've picked it up in other places, right? The smile turned into a grimace, you let a groan of pain. That gives us enough context, so that we know that this wooden shaft being there is probably not supposed to be there. Um,
Mm-hmm.
mhm. Yeah, I think that's all the comments we need to really make about the story. It's just a nice little action scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's
So
move
it's
on.
a great story with some nice brevity. So thank you very
Hmm.
much to Ace of Sword of sending in your story.
Hmm. Yeah.
But all right, I think it's high time to move on into our listener submitted story section.
Hmm.
So the next story we will be talking about is by Just Stan 8460 with Ayahuasca du Louvre.
Louvre. Yeah.
Louvre, yes.
Yes. Yeah, so this is just a little sort of trip that this woman is taking. She's looking at
Mm-hmm.
these pictures, and I think very quickly we sort of pick up that these are paintings. I think it's saying Louvre is part, that definitely gives us a clue.
The Louvre, yeah.
Yeah, but then we see a picture of someone she thinks she recognizes, an enigmatic expression. The woman is knowing and wise, although she looks young. Ruth knows the woman is very old. It's very clearly like the Mona Lisa. Um, and she sees some other um, paintings and I think a sculpture. and they all seem to speak to her as she's sort of like having this sort of like trip sequence. But then at the end of it, there's sort of like an implication that she needs to leave this area, and that she's clearly like, I don't know, causing a scene amongst the people at the Louvre. But it's interesting because it's like, she's clearly tripping in a public place, but like, I mean, the things that are being said are pretty meaningful, or at least like, I don't know, like it seems like these are just like deep messages in these pictures that can be brought out. It's like not nonsense is what I'm saying, I guess.
Yeah. There's a basis to these thoughts. Yeah. Which, I mean, that's a aspect of the story that I really liked, is that we are getting these italicized moments that are spelling out what Ruth is thinking. And I think it works really well to sort of break up this short story. I mean, if I'm looking through right now, practically every other line is within Ruth's head, which I like, because since Ruth is obviously tripping, spending as much time within her head as possible works really well to describe the exact kind of experience Ruth is having when being compared to what's happening in reality. So yeah, I just really liked all the elements that were at play within this story, and it works really well since it is such a shorter story. We can focus on those elements.
Yeah, Justin talks about how they state what this is, that it's a woman tripping on ayahuasca. Is that how it's pronounced?
Ayahuasca.
I will be honest. So, like, I don't think I would have known or picked up that she's tripping rather than just like actually having visions, unless except for the title and then this comment down here. I think the title is enough for us to understand. Because when she's talking about, she just says she's having one of her visions, which sort of implies that like it doesn't, like, this is like a surprising thing. It's kind of out of nowhere rather than her taking drugs. But maybe that's intentional. And regardless, like, I don't think it really makes that much of a difference whether these are real visions or visions brought on by drugs. Either way, she's still not exactly in reality while she's in public.
Yeah, and I think, honestly, for me, a quick fix for that would just be time. Like, because there is a moment when there is a description of her stumbling throughout this, like, very, very wide room. And I think that those are a couple of key moments the audience could use to sort of understand exactly what kind of trip she is having. But maybe just stating it more plainly would catch the audience up to speed when it comes to this. Yeah.
Yeah, if you want really to make sure that we understand that part. Okay. Next story is by?
It's by Captain Rhino with Never Say Never. Justin Bieber song.
It is a Justin Bieber song. I'm just going to read it because it's so short. Okay?
Yes.
I love you so much, Tom said. I wouldn't trade you for any woman in the world. I wouldn't trade you for any woman in the world, and there's nothing you can do that would ever make me change my mind. I slept with Mark, and I'm pregnant with his child, Helen said. Tom grimaced. Huh. I guess that might do it. Just kidding. Helen kissed him, then grinned mischievously. Or am I? You're the worst. I knew marrying you was a mistake. It's cute. It's very, very cute.
Very, very cute. I love how this short section can show us so much about this relationship. How they kid and what they kid about. I can tell that there's some really great candor here, and through this small little moment, I can understand why they are married, which is a testament to the dialogue within this section, the word choice and the prose. So great job.
Yeah. It's a nice little look into how couples work. I do like sort of the implication here of just like, we all say these romantic things, these grand gestures, but like technically they're not entirely true. That said, I think it's an interesting thing to look through, because it's like, Well, she wouldn't do that, right? Helen wouldn't have slept with Mark and be pregnant with his child and not, tell Tom or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why he wouldn't trade her for anyone else, because she's just that's not her. And if she did do that, then he wouldn't really know who she is.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, next one.
Yeah. Our final story for this week is by Walker by Faith with Stopped Short.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really like the story. I would have liked to read it if we didn't read the previous entry just last week.
Mm-hmm.
So we were introduced with this guy that doesn't know his own limits and continuously just can't accept accept those limits, and just kind of puts himself in situations where he fails and he knows he's going to fail. And here we see some of his past through the perspective of his mother. We see that same scene where he was trying to get on the roller coaster from before, and she kind of just shames him for wasting everyone's time. And then we're flashing back towards the present with calling about afterwards that he wasn't able to buy the candy bar for his daughter because he couldn't swallow his own pride, and that how he has an interview. And it seems like he's clearly very struggling, and his mother is just making him feel like shit even more. And we go back and we see that this is kind of always how it's been. She's always been shaming him, and he's never really been improving either. And then finally, the final section is just during that call, the car crash happens while they were arguing, and apparently she had a heart attack afterwards. So all three of them are dead just very suddenly from this tragedy, and it's all while they were just all arguing. And so it's pretty sad.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I really do like the form of these, I guess, stories within this series. Within this series, how we're jumping back and forth, getting additional information to color the today, and I think that this is a really effective story. I mean, it's the same it's effective in the same reasons that the previous entry was, and it does end in a very similar place with the cops showing up.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that the time taken within this piece was very much so focused,
Mm-hmm.
which I really, really liked. So great job.
Yeah, it's an interesting different perspective where she clearly has her own issues, and it's just well, your parenting just didn't work with your child. It's not entirely his fault, because we don't get to choose who we're going to start out as, and who we start out as determines who we become. And he just didn't have a very encouraging mother, apparently. It's unclear exactly. I don't think we get a thing of she should have done this exactly different in this exact way, but just clearly this wasn't okay. Yeah. At the very least, she's a little bit less worse when she's older than she was.
Mm-hmm.
But clearly still not she's still nagging him when it's never worked.
Yeah, exactly. That is all of the stories for this week. So we would like to give a big old do the right thing thank you to everyone who did submit a story. So thank you to Ace of Sword.
Thank you, Just Stand 8460.
Thank you, Captain Rhino.
And thank you, Walker by Faith.
And we would also like to say thank you to everyone who did leave comments. Leaving comments not only under your own story, but under someone else's can condense your ideas on your story for others to see. But you're also providing someone else with crucial feedback that can only improve them and you as writers. Mm-hmm. So thank you very much to Captain Rhino, Walker by Faith, Ace with Sword, and Just Stand 8460. Thank you so much for leaving comments.
That's right. Yeah, if you want to be like all these wonderful writers and submit your story to Do the Right Thing, go to reddit.com//do the right thing and follow the most recent prompt. All you have to do is set a timer for 30 minutes and use 3 of the 4 words.
Exactly. And if you want to know the words as soon as they come out, you can follow us on Twitter, which is @RightThingCast. That is where we will post any changes to our schedule and post next week's words for all of y'all to see.
Just funny going on here at Doof Media. If you haven't just caught up on some of the other shows in a while, please consider doing so. If you haven't checked out the book club, the April book club just ended with reading Station 11. And of course, you can go and listen to that live stream where we also interact with listeners. The one for this next month is The Terror by Dan Simmons. I'm kind of excited for how that's going to go because I think I remember hearing a little bit about that book and that it's an interesting one. But okay, I think that's all we got. Jarvis, let's find out what the words are for this week.
Yes, so the words for this week are vexed, refrain, homemade, and broad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a fun little set of words. So to be vexed is to be like perplexed or like puzzled or otherwise like stopped
Intrigued,
or like I think just like restricted or refrained or not refrained, like what's the word? You're blocked by something that's like a puzzle, basically.
Yeah.
It is confounding your efforts to solve a thing. And usually I think there's an implication of like confusion or being like, a little bit upsetting. I think it can be a lot of different situations. Like you can be vexed by it's just someone literally just blocking your way because you can't figure out how to get past them. That's enough to be vexed. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. The next word being refrain is when you sort of repeat a sort of phrase or a sentence or some, kind of mantra over and over. And it can be in any sort of context, just like repeating it in your head or a refrain in a song. I think like choruses are a refrain. I think you would classify that, right?
Yes.
I think not like technically. There's probably like a technical term for what a refrain is, but
it could be a refrain.
Yeah. And then something to be homemade is to be made at the home, as opposed to being like store bought or made in a factory or otherwise just made somewhere else by someone else. I think there's a lot of implications there. What the qualities of something being homemade as opposed to bought elsewhere.
Yeah.
Last one, broad. So
opposite
I would say
of narrow.
Opposite narrow, so wide rather than thin. But also it can be a term for women, I think.
Oh.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah. So I was talking to this broad the other day. I think there's also like there's an implication of like the time period in which it's being used in, but also like I think an implication of like
connotation,
like disrespect a little bit, just like kind of objectifying, I think.
Yeah.
All right, Jarvis, give me your teeny tiny story.
Cool. The homemade potato salad my roommate made vexed me. It had good flavor. It had a broad aroma, but something about it didn't ring true, like a refrain.
Like a refrain of what?
Like a refrain in my favorite song. Something was missing.
Okay, sure. I think that sort of works. I think a little bit.
Yeah. What is your 10-word story?
My 10-word story is homemade broad, aka a child, vexed me by saying a refrain of I don't want to go to bed. And it's just and this little tiny broad, this 4-year-old broad, just wouldn't stop saying I don't want to go to bed, and I couldn't make it go to bed. That's the story. Do the right thing. I love you.
Do the right thing.
Good night, besties, folks.
Best kids.
I think allergies are killing me. I think my brain might be a bit vexed.